Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation brought to you by Bet365. My name is Dave Quadrilli. I'm joined by Harmon Dial. We got a lot to get to today, so let's not waste any time. Evander Kane speaks for the first time since joining the Vancouver Canucks, which, hey, that happened just yesterday. So Evander Kane took to the podium about half an hour ago. Oh, I had to sneeze. I got rid of it, though. Half an hour ago, Evander Kane takes to the podium. Harmon, did you get a chance to listen to what Evander Kane had to say?
Not the entire availability. Caught bits and pieces of it. Thing is, he's always come across well in media settings. He's polished. He's charming. He's thoughtful and well spoken. I think that that was apparent again, and I love the blue and green kind of suit that he had. Always, obviously showing up in full style in class. It's such a change as well compared to you have end of season availabilities for most Canucks players, and you see him pull up pretty casually. Whereas Kane, he wants to make a bold entrance, and it was no different again today.
Hey, pulling up casually is going to be a new thing. One thing that we're going to get to in anyone else is the new CBA. A couple new things. No lockout, folks. That should be really the headline of today's show. No lockout. No lockout. They've reached a CBA, according to Frank Saravalli. We're going to break that down in anyone else. And part of that CBA is that players get to wear whatever they want, arriving and departing from the rink. Now, Evander Kane, I had a couple takeaways from his press conference. He didn't really want to talk much about his past. Was a little snippy, I thought, with Patrick Johnson asked a question before he could even get the question out. Kane kind of quickly jumped in and said, some of the stuff about him isn't accurate. So he didn't want to talk much about his past, but he did talk about how excited he is to come home, have the grandparents close by. Obviously, he's got 4 kids. I didn't realize it was 4, to be honest with you. So he's quite excited to be here. He's excited to be home. Again, the big emphasis, I think, was that he chose Vancouver, and he thanked the Oilers for helping him get to a place that he wanted to be in Vancouver. He's here. He did his first press conference, and I'm curious how people felt like he came across, because you said it, like, he's always charming. He always comes across really well. I didn't necessarily think it was a phenomenal, what a clinic of a press conference from Evander Kane. I was like, he was, like I said, he was a little snippy about a couple things that I think are valid questions to be asking. And I don't know, like, it wasn't like, oh, he came across poorly or anything like that. But, like, I have the same read on him as you, where you've seen these great moments in the media, and it was like, it wasn't like a masterclass or anything. And I don't want to sit here and grade the press conference or anything like that, but I didn't necessarily think he came across poorly. I didn't think he came across great either.
I'll be honest, I was never thinking before this press conference that I was going to put much stock in what he said anyway. Whether it went amazingly and he said all the right things, or whether he bombed the press conference, neither of which was really the case. But the point being, actions are going to be how we ultimately judge Kane, and that begins in training camp. That begins with his on-ice performance, how he fits in with the locker room, and it's just words as far as what we get from him in this press conference. And so I don't mean to say this doesn't really matter, but I'll come out and say it. Whatever he says doesn't really matter. It comes down to how he actually looks as a Vancouver Canuck when the season starts. And this is where, as we discussed on yesterday's show, you're hoping that because he's incentivized, he's going to be 34 years old, contract year, that he's on his best behavior, that he's motivated to have the best season possible, because this is probably going to be his last chance to really cash in on a multi-year contract, and especially playing in his hometown city where he's got his family all around him, deep roots here. You hope that can unlock the best version of Kane on and off the ice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree with you. And that's something Tyler talked about yesterday as well. That was another thing that he was snippy about, was the idea of a contract year. He said, I've never heard anyone talk so much about a contract year when so many other guys have contract years. But anyways, I don't think I want to break down this media conference at all. And not for any reason beyond just, if you like Evander Kane, you probably liked what he had to say. If you don't like Evander Kane, you didn't like the trade, nothing he said is going to sway you. Like you said, Harm, it all matters what happens on the ice. Anything else that you want to say about Kane or the press conference today?
Not really.
Excellent. I was hoping you'd say that because, oh my gosh, I want to talk about this JJ Peterka trade. Let's get to our opening segment today, which is brought to you by our friends at Pacific Toyota Dealers, who want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X. An SUV packed with plenty of space, the BZ4X can handle any terrain and can take you from the city to the slopes. It's backed by the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're driving a Toyota, and if you're driving a BZ4X, you get access to HOV lanes even if you're driving alone. When you choose the BZ4X, you get a $5,000 incentive, and now you can finance a 2025 BZ4X LE all-wheel drive from 0.99% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right, JJ Peterka traded, happened late last night. Bad news for the Vancouver Canucks. Before we get to the trade package itself, I want to talk about JJ Peterka, the player, and how yesterday we were talking about, okay, to have a good offseason, you got to go get JJ Peterka, you got to go get Marco Rossi. One down, one left potential player for the Canucks to get, Harm. Your thoughts on not the deal. I don't want to talk about the return, just the trade that sent JJ Peterka from the Buffalo Sabres to the Utah Mammoth.
Yeah, I love the fit for him in Utah. Utah with Cooley, with Keller, with Gunther, they're already a team that is speedy in transition, that likes to attack off the rush, and that is Peterka's bread and butter. He does the overwhelming majority of his damage offensively off the rush. You watch the tape of his points and goals, it's all in transition because he has this speed, he has the hands, and he's got an ability to beat goaltenders from distance that is pretty rare among NHL forwards, to just beat them clean without a screen in place. And when you think about how he could fit with a dynamic playmaking center like Cooley and how they could connect off the rush or even on Keller's line, I feel like Peterka is going to be such a dangerous weapon for that Utah team that has some rising stars, but I believe they ranked 21st in the NHL in goals scored per game this past season. So he's going to give them a boost there. I will say I'm a really big fan of the player, but when we were discussing him in the last couple of weeks and I was talking him up as such an ideal target, I probably should have been more fair in acknowledging a couple of the risk factors with Peterka, just to give a balanced sort of profile and take on the player. It's worth noting that Peterka had the highest 5-on-5 on ice shooting percentage in the NHL this past season. It was just north of 14%. The point being, his line got some bounces. Now, the types of chances he creates, you think that he should be able to elevate. He should be able to sustain an elevated shooting percentage because off the rush, it's harder for goaltenders to get set. So he should have just naturally an above average on ice shooting percentage, I would think. But I don't know if he's going to maintain 14 plus. So there's a chance that his even strength production does regress to some extent next year. And it's going to be interesting to see how dangerous can he become on the power play, because you can't really translate the rush scoring skill set to the man advantage as easily because you're attacking in zone on the power play. There just aren't as many rush attacking opportunities there. And then secondly, this past year, he had some of the worst defensive metrics in the league. Now, part of that could be the Buffalo environment factor. And it's worth noting that in 2023-24, his defensive metrics weren't as bad. Plus, he's young enough that, all right, you think as he matures, he should be able to improve his play without the puck. But those are two yellow flags that are at least worth mentioning as we discuss Peterka, because there's no doubt about it. He's a high-end top six dynamic creator. But it isn't as simple as he's a lock to be a 70 to 80 point stud for the next 7 years. That's probably the most, or next 5 years. That's probably the most likely outcome, but there are a couple of risk factors worth mentioning as well.
You'd bet on it, but there's still some risk factors. Now, the trade package, I think this caught a lot of people off guard. I think Buffalo Sabres fans are pretty underwhelmed by it. Michael Kesselring, a defenseman that we've talked about a lot on this show, actually, and you're not going to get anyone telling you Michael Kesselring sucks on this show. We both really like Michael Kesselring on this show, and you brought it up way before me. Would you like to take a victory lap?
100% I would. I was so right about him. I remember last summer in August, we had a show. The Canucks had done their offseason shopping, and you looked at their bottom four, and they just had tree trunks who couldn't move the puck. The Vinny Desharnais. And we were like, they need a puck mover. And I highlighted Kesselring back when he was a 24-year-old rookie who had an okay first season in the NHL, playing on Arizona's third pair.
Yeah.
Former 6th-round draft pick. Nobody knew who the hell he was. And I was saying, I've seen his tools. He's raw, but I think he's got a lot of upside here. And the crazy
And I
part
said,
is,
wait, 6'5"?
yeah, I was like, this guy's 6'5". He can move the puck. He skates well. I bet you he's gonna break out. And the crazy part too is back then the Mammoth had Dursey and they just acquired Marino, so they were set on the right side of the blue line. Any team that wanted to swoop in on Kesselring before he pops could have probably gone to Utah, and swung that deal. He broke out this year. Got an opportunity in the top 4 for the first half of the season because Marino and Dursey were hurt, and now he's a centerpiece that lands Utah JJ Peterka. So that's pretty cool there.
I love it. I love it. So back to the main point. Michael Kesselring gets traded along with Josh Doan. I keep wanting to call him Shane. Josh Doan, son of Shane, gets traded to the Buffalo Sabres for JJ Peterka. Now, Kesselring's obviously the big piece here. What do you think of Josh Doan? Because I've seen people be like, oh, well, he might pop. I don't know. He kind of projects as like a middle 6 winger at best. To me, this guy's never going to score like significantly more. He might have a 20-goal season or two, but he's never going to be more than that, I don't think, from what I've seen.
Probably, but he has the potential to be a really good middle 6 winger, which is something considering he's 23 years old. He's scrappy. He's really good defensively. He's got size. He's got energy, and he's put up 28 points in his first 62 NHL games, which when you're in your early 20s like that, is pretty intriguing. That's not bad for the secondary piece in a Peterka in that package. Now, the overall trade return is underwhelming. It's light, but I actually think Doan is better than a lot of other people have been talking about him as. They've been talking about him as, oh, he's just going to be bottom six grinder. Whereas I look at him and go, you already know he's going to be a really solid 2-way third line player that has a kind of size,
high floor.
Nasty,
he's got a high floor.
He's got the high floor. I don't know if he's got a top 6 ceiling per se, but he's going to be a valuable sort of middle lineup player for Buffalo for a while.
Okay, so he's a secondary piece, but my broader point is just those two pieces together. And I like Kesselring a lot. I really like Kesselring. It's underwhelming. It's underwhelming for the Buffalo Sabres to not get more back for JJ Peterka. And look, that was the widespread reaction. Now, some of it, I will say, some of it was people who don't know much about Mason. I keep calling him Mason Kesselring, who plays for the Coquitlam Express, Michael Kesselring's brother. But Michael Kesselring, there are a lot of people who just don't know how good Michael Kesselring is. And that's fine. You don't have to. I'm here to tell you he's very good. He's a very good player. He was a 3-4 defenseman this year. I think he has legit upside to be a 2-3, but that's still upside that needs to be realized. Look, I'm sure you're really bullish on him realizing that upside, but again, you're trading for a guy who at best can be a 2-3. Like, he's never going to be a number 1 defenseman. And JJ Peterka is a first-line winger. He's a play-driving winger. I look at that and say, you got to get more, whether that be a draft pick. Like, I was thinking, okay, you might be able to get Kesselring and then the 4th overall pick, but it was Kesselring and Shane Doan, Josh Doan. But yeah, like, I thought it was going to be more. I really did.
Kesselring in a 4th would have been too much. That probably wouldn't have been realistic, but I'm with you. The overall return was a little bit light. This feels like a situation where I bet you the Sabres had other offers on the table where there was more pure value available, but the Sabres probably had a tunnel vision as far as addressing that need for top 4 right shot defensemen.
Yeah.
And they probably took less specifically to fill that positional need. That's how I likely view it, because earlier in the week, Frank Saravalli was on Sportsnet 650 talking about how the Blackhawks were throwing around the idea of tossing the 3rd overall pick in as part of a Peterka trade, and how the Sabres didn't really have any interest in that. This feels like a scenario where the Sabres were pretty narrow-minded in terms of really wanting that top 4 right shot defenseman, weren't really interested in futures, and therefore took less overall value to fill that specific positional need.
I just think that's bad. I think that's a bad idea. I will say this as well, and I want Jacob to jump in too, because he's got a bunch of stuff for us on this. But I will say as well, if you're a team that's not going to spend to the cap, do you know what you need, Harm? You need really high-end contributors on ELCs. And you know where you get those? The draft. So this idea that we don't want 3rd overall, we don't want 4th overall, give us Michael Kesselring. Again, good contract. Like he's on a good contract. He's going to be undervalued. That's going to be great. That's going to be a great contract for them. But you need those high-end producers. And I like Michael Kesselring a lot. I don't think he's that. I don't think he's a high-end real needle mover for them. And ultimately it's just mediocrity in Buffalo. And that's all this is. You had a chance, I think, to go get some real value for a guy who, look, there were sweepstakes for JJ Peterka. Some of these offers that are rumored to have been offered for JJ Peterka are way better than what they ended up taking. And Saravalli had a lot of them. Jacob, go ahead.
It's funny because like I see this and it doesn't even seem real. I don't know how close any of these were. I don't know if, maybe this is what Buffalo was asking for. I mean, it does say offers, but the more I think about it, like I go back to Harm's point here where it's Buffalo clearly took less to fill that positional need on the right side. And, as much as we can say, yeah, Kesselring is a really solid second pair right shot defenseman, it just seems like when you have a piece like Peterka, who you're selling high on after, the season he had last year, you just needed to get something more, right? Like you're telling me that Buffalo couldn't have used 2 first-round picks or Noah Dobson?
For those that are on the podcast, what we're showing on the screen right now is a quote from Frank Saravalli, courtesy of NHL Rumor Report on Twitter. This was Frank on the DFO Rundown, said that the Wild offered Marco Rossi plus, the Blues put Jordan Kyrou on the table, a team offered 2 first-round picks, Noah Dobson was in the conversation as well, and they went with this one. I don't care how much you like Michael Kesselring. 2 names that I'm screwing up in this trade. That's crazy. I don't care how much you like Michael Kesselring. I really don't. And I know there's a couple people out there that are like, if you don't like this trade, you don't watch enough hockey. You don't know as much as I do. I don't care how much you like Kesselring. They could have gotten a better package in return. They could have.
I mean, if these proposals or the names involved are true, then it's wild that they went with the package that they got. And I say that as the biggest Kesselring fan on earth.
And Harm, this is the thing. These aren't coming out of nowhere. Like, this is what we thought relative to what we were expecting. Those packages are what we thought it would cost to land JJ Peterka. Think about the packages we were throwing together. Like, how can the Canucks get JJ Peterka? Apparently, all it would take is Linus Karlsson.
You know what?
So hold on. Sorry, Harm. I hate to interrupt, but I just remembered this. Earlier this week, I believe it was on Monday's show, Quads asked me to write something down.
Oh, is it there?
JJ Peterka, the return for JJ Peterka will be less than what we expected. So
did I really say that?
It might have been Harm asking me to write this one down.
No, I didn't. That was a Quads.
Then it was you, Quads.
I say so much stuff. I know.
So that the reason I didn't have it on my list is because I was in the studio producing that show because we had Rink Wide after. So I just went back through my notes, and yeah, you said on Monday after the Zegras trade, you said, you know what, JJ Peterka, the return is going to be less than what we thought.
Oh yeah, so I did say that.
But I
hate to
say, not coming from a mile away. Hard told you, baby.
Yeah, but you weren't saying that because of the Sabres front office is incompetent angle. You were saying that because you thought the Zegras trade indicated that there wouldn't be as much demand for Peterka.
Evidently, it did. Moving on. No, we'll come back to it in a second.
One thing I wanted to say.
We got a super chat. Chat here. This is from Canuck Noah. He said, which players would you consider trading to give Vancouver a better chance at making the playoffs next season? Jacob, put that one at the start of anyone else. We thank you for the super chat, Noah. We're going to kick off anyone else with that question. If you want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show, hit us with a super chat. Proceeds from our super chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Sorry, Harm, on Peterka, you had something else.
Yeah, so the common thread between those other rumored players, Dobson, Kyrou, and Rossi, are that they were on big contracts, right? So Kyrou's on a big contract. Dobson probably wants close to $10 million on his next deal.
A dream, remember?
Rossi on a long-term deal wants something close to the Boldy 7x7.
Yeah.
And the difference, look at the package the Sabres got. Kesselring's at 1.4 and Doan's on a really cheap contract as well. So I wonder if part of it comes down to ownership in Buffalo.
It does.
And the
It
Pegulas
does.
really
What do you mean
cost cutting.
It does.
And,
It is.
and this is what I'm saying is if you're operating like that, you're a poverty franchise. Because yes, those are big contracts, but those players are worth those contracts. And this screams of a franchise that has a bunch of RFAs this summer, because it isn't just Peterka, but there's Byram, there's Ryan McLeod as well. And they've already signed some of their young players, got them locked up to expensive long-term deals. This reeks of, we don't want to spend to the cap. And so we're taking a deal not only to fill that right shot need, but specifically we're bringing in players that are cheap.
Kesselring's going to need a new contract after next season. So we'll see how long that cost cutting goes on for. But you're right. It is that. Again, like Jacob pointed out in our private chat yesterday or in our WhatsApp chat, that these guys spend they spend a lot on the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
And look, I want to say this.
Josh Allen's getting paid $55 million next year on his own, and they're about to open their brand new $1.8 billion stadium that was mostly funded by the Pegulas. They have the money.
Favorite for the Super Bowl right now?
They're among the favorites. Yeah.
So let's call a spade a spade. They are focused on winning a Super Bowl. They don't care about the hockey team right now. Let's be honest here. They don't care about the hockey team. Let's call it what it is. They do not care about the hockey team. The Athletics owner rankings had Pegula at 32 of 32. Not going to talk about anything else on that list, but
not going to talk about who was 31st.
No, we're not talking about 31. Right now we're talking about the Sabres, Harm, okay? 32 Pegula, and that's why. Look, you know what? Let's talk about 31, okay? Francesco Aquilini came in at 31 on that. At least the Canucks spend to the cap. At least they're trying to get creative. It bothers me. You know what? You shouldn't be allowed to own a franchise if you don't spend to the cap. Because look, here's the thing: the salary cap was brought in so that teams like the Rangers and these rich franchises like the Leafs or whoever couldn't just spend more than anyone else. It was to bring parity into the league, and really, it was to pay the players less money. But if there's a salary cap like there is in the NHL, you should have to spend to, and I know they have the cap floor, raise that, make everybody spend way closer to the cap than they currently do. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for the league, especially when revenues are high. There's no need for a team like Buffalo. It's a developmental team basically in the league where, we'll develop your players and then we'll trade them to you when they're ready to play better and ready to actually get paid and ready to get. It's embarrassing. It's silly. It shouldn't be that way. It's one thing for Major League Baseball to have teams like that, like the A's, the Rockies, whatever, where there's awful ownership because, it's expensive to run an MLB team and, all sorts of other stuff. And I'm a Mariners fan, so I know all about ownership cheaping out. But in a salary cap league, I'm sorry, if you own an NHL team in a salary cap league, you need to pay a certain amount. And I know they do right now. Raise that floor way more. This shouldn't be happening. This is silly.
Matthew Fairburn over at the Athletic had a great story a few weeks ago where he looked at Kevin Adams' rise and from the perspective of how this guy sort of ended up in charge and the whole ownership angle. It was really fascinating reading that story. And basically, when the Pegulas first bought the Sabres, they were really invested and they treated the players well. They invested in facilities. They built that Harbor Center, and that obviously is still home to the Combine. They were all in on the Sabres, but then when they bought the Bills, the Sabres became a complete afterthought, and that's really what it is they're focused on the Bills and they don't really seem to care a lot about the Sabres. And so I really feel for that fan base because they've suffered a ton, and I don't see the situation improving a lot anytime soon until there's an ownership change.
Nope, absolutely. Bang on. Okay. Anything else you want to say about the Peterka trade?
Nope.
We're obviously going to get to what did the Canucks do now that Peterka's off the board. We're going to do that, and anyone else. I think that's a good way to kind of answer Canuck Noah's super chat question. We'll do that, and anyone else. But before that, we're going to play Family Feud. But before that, I'm going to tell you all about our friends at Greta. By now, you know Greta's a great spot to watch the big game. And by now, you might also know this, but just in case you don't, I'm going to repeat it. an even better spot for your upcoming party or event. If you need a venue for a team building or summer social event, check out Greta. They've got the street food menu, they've got the arcade, and of course, they've got the bar. It's always a fun time with plenty of options. To make Greta your spot for your next event, check out gretabar.com. Greta Bar YVR, 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. Speaking of games, let's play some Family Feud.
Way harder.
I'm your man.
Sorry, I was just saying it's way harder for me to maneuver that when I got to get quads into the small box. It's a lot more work.
I'm your man, David Quadrelli. We're gonna play Family Feud. Don't ever interrupt me again when I'm doing my Family Feud intro. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
which one?
I've been interrupted.
Which one of you is going first?
Harm, are we gonna stick to what's worked, or do we want to?
Sure, yeah. We've been winning, so
okay.
Sure.
So people, and I'll just say this off the top. Okay, we had a ton of new viewers and listeners. I'm assuming on the podcast as well. Jacob knows that, but a ton of new viewers on YouTube watching the show for the first time yesterday because of the Evander Kane trade. And I said repeatedly on that show, hey, make sure you're here tomorrow because we're going to play Family Feud. And there are a lot of people who actually did that because there's a lot of people watching us today as well, more than normal. So welcome to all the new people. Because we have a bunch of new people, I will explain the rules. Typically, I do not host this show. This might be one of my last weeks hosting the show, but we'll see. So basically what we do, we put out a survey each week where we ask 100 Canucks Conversation listeners to answer questions in the style of Family Feud Fast Money. Now, your responses then become worth points. So the guys are trying to figure out what the most common responses on the surveys, on the survey each week was. They need to get to 200 points. It is the style of Family Feud Fast Money. You'll get it as we play along. The guys need 200 points to get the win. All right, gentlemen, which one of you is going first? Sorry, I know you just told me. Who's going first?
Harm's going first, so I'll...
Okay, so Jacob's going to take off his headset. I've explained the rules. Harmon, you will have 25 seconds on the clock. Your time will begin when I finish reading the first question. And listen to the question closely.
all right.
It is a listener question. It is really funny, I think. Where'd it go? Yeah, okay. It's really funny. Let me just change the order of this. All right. It's a funny question. It's a long one, and you're going to have to really lock in, okay?
All right.
On June 12th, 1970, Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher Doc Ellis pitched a no-hitter against the San Diego Padres while high on LSD. Which Canucks goalie, past or present, would be or would have been capable of posting a shutout while high on LSD?
Luongo.
How many total Canucks players from all countries combined will participate in the 2026 Winter Olympics?
Oof. 8.
Who is the best Vancouver Canucks TV play-by-play commentator of all time?
Jim Houston.
Besides the Canucks, which team would you most like to see win the Stanley Cup in 2026?
Jets.
Rounded to the nearest 5. How many points will Tom Willander tally next year?
20.
All right. Flag Jacob, I'm going to mute. I got to go watch your answers again.
All right. How'd Harm do?
It was all right. There was one question where I completely kind of guessed, and I don't think I gave a good answer, but it's all right. I think this is going to be a close one this week. I hope so, at least. Anyway, if it's not close, then it means I bombed the first.
I see a few people in the chat saying legendary question, so I'm looking forward to whatever that one is.
Oh yeah, the first question's funny. It's a good one.
Okay.
It's probably the strangest question we've ever had on Feud.
All right.
but it's right up your alley, I feel like.
Okay, yeah.
I think you'll do well. I love how quads. I love how when you host, you're able to clock all the answers in real time. Meanwhile, quads. Whoa.
I sometimes miss one, but at least I get the rest. And when I do it, I have this whole elaborate spreadsheet. I don't know if Quads is using my spreadsheet.
And then remember last week,
tally all the scores really quick.
I remember last week for the last question, it was like the best vacation spot in BC. And I said Penticton, and Quads was like, you said Whistler, right? And he said that after having listened a second time too.
Yeah.
How long does Quads need?
Oh man, I'm gonna have to cut all this out of the audio pod now. Sit here in silence. Watching.
We're gonna start a timer for Quads.
Oh, I think he's muted too. He is muted.
You're muted.
All right. So sorry. That took me a while. I wanted to make sure I got it right, and unfortunately, some of Harmon's answers were not in my list, but that's okay. You actually did.
Yeah.
You guys did okay. Harmon got you 97 points.
Okay.
Yeah, so definitely attainable.
Halfway there.
Yep, definitely attainable for you. Yeah, sorry that took me a while. I don't know why that took so long. Sorry to everybody watching the live stream, and Jacob, like you said, you're gonna have to cut that out of the audio pod, so I apologize to you as well. Okay, so Jacob, you were going second. Basically, what's gonna people in the chat are giving me. I deserve that. I deserve it. It did take me a while. Cali Canuck goes Quads 1 + 5 = 6. It's not that easy. Trust me. Okay. So for those that are new, Jacob goes second. If he repeats one of Harmon's answers, I'm gonna yell beep at him, and that's gonna be how he knows that he gave a duplicate response. So he's gonna have to give another one. This is gonna be a really interesting one.
I'm also allowed to pass if I don't know a response, because you didn't tell me that last week, but I knew the rules. So
yeah. All right. This is gonna be a really interesting one. Let's do it. Jacob, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. 30 seconds on the clock. I put it. You didn't run out of time, Harm, but I put a 25-minute timer on instead of seconds. So you really had 25 minutes to work with, but I'll put a timer on for Jacob.
All right.
All right, Jacob, your time begins when I finish reading the first question. This is a listener question. Shout out to the listener that submitted this. On June 12th, 1970, Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher Doc Ellis, you already know where I'm going with this.
I know where this is going.
He pitched a no-hitter against the San Diego Padres while high on LSD. Which Canucks goalie, past or present, would be or would have been capable of posting a shutout while high on LSD?
Pass.
How many total Canucks players from all countries combined will participate in the 2026 Olympics?
3 or 4.
Who's the best Vancouver Canucks TV play-by-play commentator of all time?
John Shorthouse.
Besides the Canucks, which team would you most like to see win the Stanley Cup in 2026?
Montreal Canadiens.
Rounded to the nearest 5. How many NHL points will Tom Willander tally next year?
25.
Yes, we can accept that. And the first one again, Canucks goalie.
Let's go with Richard Brodeur.
All right. This is gonna be close. This is gonna be real close.
I don't think we got it.
I don't know.
Well, hang on a sec.
Let me walk you through question there. Like, I go Richard Brodeur because he played in the 70s and 80s, but like, I don't know how many listeners are going to respond with Richard Brodeur for that one.
Maybe
like,
Eddie Lack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Harmon has gotten you the number 1 and 2 answer in theory, but unfortunately, he only gets credit for the number 1 answer.
So
well, not unfortunately. That's great.
Okay.
Eddie Lack was number 2, tied with John Garrett, who respectfully, based on eras, might be the only... Nah, never mind.
Well,
okay,
Richard Brodeur, I mean, played around the same time.
Yeah, so Richard Brodeur, we'll walk through it. I figured out what I did wrong on the first round. I'm going to be able to go through this right away. So let's do it. First question, which Canucks goalie could pitch a shutout while high on LSD? Luongo was the number 1 answer with 35 points. Just sheer skill, right? Taking over.
Sure.
Eddie Lack came in at number 2, tied with John Garrett at 10 points. Gary Smith getting some love with 9 points. Jacob Markstrom got 9 points, and Archer Shilov's also got 9 points. There was a big spread here. It was very interesting to see. Richard Brodeur was worth 4 points, so we will write that down, Jacob. So that puts you guys...
No goose egg. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. You're fine. You're fine. How many total Canucks players from all countries combined will participate in the 2026 Olympics? You guys left the number 1 answer on the board here with... you guys said... Harmon said 8, right, Harm?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I completely, sometimes when you hear something, but it doesn't actually like register. I'll be honest. I was like, Quads, you were like halfway through the question or like two-thirds of the way through it. And I was like, I did not clock what this question is about. And so I just spat out a random number.
You still got points. You still got points.
8 is
But
high.
unfortunately,
No, yeah, I did.
unfortunately,
I did
well, hang
not
on. No.
understand the question.
Unfortunately, I tallied yours wrong the first time, so you had less than 97 points to start with. Hold on, I'm gonna figure
This
this
is our
out. Where did I go
longest
wrong?
Family Feud
I'm gonna
segment
figure this
ever.
out. Just wait. Oh, okay, I got it. See, I figured it out quick. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That was worth 1 point. Okay.
All right.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it confused me.
I just
Jacob, you said
mentally
4.
blanked.
I said 4. Yeah.
Okay, that was worth 19 points, so we'll write
Okay.
that down. Okay, that means you guys need 80 more points with 3 questions to go. Who is the best Vancouver Canucks TV play-by-play commentator of all time? Harm, you said Jim Houston. That was the number 3 answer, worth 18 points. Jim Robson
I was
worth...
hoping Harm would have said Robson. As soon as I said Shorthouse, my gosh, I hope Harm said Robson.
You'll be okay because Jim Robson was only worth 20. John Shorthouse, the overwhelming number 1 answer with 62. Those are the only 3 vote getters, actually. None of the other guys who did TV got any picks in that survey. That means you have 2 questions to go. You guys need 18 points off of Jacob's answers.
I think we got it.
Round to the nearest 5, which someone pointed out, and I appreciate it, that I didn't need to put rounded to the nearest 5 in the question because I gave ranges. But anyways, I take the questions that people submit because it's fun when people submit the questions. These are actually all listener questions, I think. But how many points will Tom Willander tally next year in the NHL? Harmon, you said 20.
Yeah.
20 was the number 1 answer. 1620 was the number 1 answer with 24 points. Jacob, you said what?
25.
All right, that was the number 3 answer.
But hold on.
With 20 points, it gives you the win.
Cool, great. I'm glad we won, but based on the ranges, 16 to 20 is not rounded to the nearest 5 because 16 would round down to 15.
That's why rounded to the nearest 5 does not need to be in the question. That's what I was just saying. Someone wrote that in the extra comments part. They were like, you didn't need to write this. So anyways, I'm announcing my retirement as the host of Family Feud. I'm done doing this. This sucks. I hate this. I'm playing next week. But you guys are gonna leave on a win. We'll go to the last one. What was the last one? Besides the Canucks, which team would you most like to see win the Stanley Cup in 2026? Jets was the number 1 answer, and Harmon got that with 19 points. Jacob said the Habs, which was the number 3 answer. And you guys aren't going to be able to guess second answer. I was actually a little bit disgusted with the second answer.
Edmonton
Oilers got 12 votes, and that was number 2. It was a widespread. It really was a widespread. Senators getting some votes. Panthers, Leafs, Sabres, Jackets.
Who's saying Panthers? I guess anyone who wants to say they've seen it repeat.
Great work, gentlemen. Yeah, I'm done. I genuinely feel bad. Erwin Aquino in the chat.
This is a tough one.
He said, new viewers, it's normally not like this. That's so true. Like, I've hosted 3 times now. None of them were as difficult as this one. I don't know why this one was so hard.
I will happily take over hosting duties
take
again.
the reins.
I'll set up a survey for
undefeated.
Tomorrow. Yeah, I'm retiring 3-0.
And this wasn't an easy survey. I think I found the sweet spot of like difficulty. Yeah. I think you guys had to work for this one. And shout out to I hate that we can't see people's not home addresses, but email addresses or anything on the responses because I'd love to give a shout out to the person who came up with that Doc Ellis question. So if it was you in the chat, hit us up here because that was a phenomenal question.
What I'll say is if you want to, if it can be completely honest, but if you want us to know, just sign it at the end, right? When you leave the question, just put like a dash and then put your name and then we can shout you out if you want. Otherwise it stays anonymous. But yeah, I'm actually surprised, Quads, somebody came up with that one and they obviously knew that you were hosting and that you were going to see that and just smile ear to ear.
That was great.
Yeah. Mixing baseball and hockey and goalies and LSD.
Karn in the chat. Yeah, I think we need Jacob back as host. You guys needed an intern. Yeah, we need to get Jacob back in the hosting chair for sure. All right. Yeah, how long did it take me? Someone should have put a timer on me doing the math on Harman's that I did incorrectly. Should also mention.
Honestly, if I had to do hosting as well, I'd be in the exact same position as you.
People want to see you host in the chat, but I'm not going to put that
no,
on
no,
you.
no, no,
I
no,
know
no.
you don't want to do
No.
that. Yeah, it is hard. It's
difficult.
Yeah, it is.
It's more testament to how good Jacob is than how bad you are.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a great way to look at it. I'm not dumb. Jacob's just really smart. That's how we're gonna look at it. Okay. All right, let's get to anyone else. Anyone else is a presentation of our friends over at the Vancouver Canadians, who are back for a long homestand of 9 games in 10 days. Tonight, Thursday the 26th, they've got fireworks. There's a nooner at the Nat on the 27th, tomorrow, Marvel Superhero Day on the 28th, and Celebrate Canada Day on July 1st with a 1:05 p.m. first pitch and bucket hat giveaway. The Nat is going to be rocking all week and all weekend long. For tickets, call 604-872-5232 or check out CanadiansBaseball.com. Karn said, so if Harm hosts, we should put pickleball questions. Yeah, I like this. I would like to see you host, Harm. I think you could do it. I think you could do a good job.
Let's not see that train wreck.
Let's not see it. Let's get to the super chat from Canuck Noah, who said, which players would you consider trading to give Vancouver a better chance at making the playoffs next season? A little wordy there, but the point being, JJ Peterka's off the board. Who's your pivot piece? Obviously, it's Marco Rossi, right? Like, do you have another name that you're not telling us that you've been kind of keeping in the back pocket of, here's the guy that they need to go after to really solidify them as a team that can excel in the playoffs, not only get to the playoffs, but excel and challenge for the Pacific Division?
So I'm trying to be realistic, right? Because as much as I would love to see a Barzell or a Larkin or an Alex Tuck or a Tage Thompson, I'm assuming those guys aren't available. I'm also assuming Jason Robertson, who would be a dream target, exactly what this team needs in terms of an offensive game breaker, an elite superstar. I'm going to assume, similar to our Peterka conversations, that the Canucks just aren't going to be able to win that bidding war. You'd have 20 plus teams in on Jason Robertson if the Stars actually made him available.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be as realistic as possible. If it isn't Rossi, then I wonder about Jared McCann, who is on Chris Johnston's latest trade board. Again, I'm not sure how motivated the Kraken are to trade him. We know that, yes, they sold off Bjorkstrand at last year's deadline, but I've also mentioned Botterill at end of season availability was talking about how aggressive he wants to be to improve the team. So I don't really know what the plan or the direction in Seattle is right now. They went out and acquired Freddie Gaudreau, another bottom six forward, which is kind of strange because they're just collecting middle to bottom of the lineup forwards, which they already have a glut of. But if McCann's available, he would be a terrific fit as a lethal goal scorer, speed, primarily a winger at this stage in his career rather than a true center. But he would be, I love the idea of him a lot more compared to, you look at some of the other names on CJ's trade board, talking about like Rust, Arvidsson, Charlie Coyle, Michelli, Pajot, like those names just don't really appeal to me, to be honest.
Do you like Jared McCann or Brock Besser more?
McCann more, especially because he only makes $5 million against a cap. But the obstacle, of course, is acquisition cost.
Yep.
What are you going to have to give up to get him? I would imagine there'd be quite the bidding war for McCann if the Kraken were aggressively shopping him. And this is why, when it comes down to, let's say, the Peterka conversation, it isn't also just what would it take. It's what's that team's specific needs. Because yes, the Canucks could have offered more total value than the Mammoth did as far as bidding on Peterka. But the Sabres were very narrow-minded in terms of, we want a ready-made 25-year-old right shot defenseman. Canucks didn't have that kind of piece to give up. Most teams didn't have that kind of piece to give up. So what is that sort of desire for the Kraken? Are they open to the idea of futures? Because they already kind of have some extra first-round picks. Do the Canucks have what it takes? That's the more that's a trickier part to figure out in the McCann puzzle, and for most of these top targets that you may want to go after.
when we started talking about this, you said something that really piqued my interest and made me think about the no, I'm going to call it a conversation. The question I asked Patrick Alvin yesterday about player availability and if that played into them going after Evander Kane, and he didn't entertain that aspect of it too much. But one thing he did say, and something that you just said that also piqued my interest when it comes to this, is that there's just not a ton of players available right now. Like, there's no clear sellers. We've talked about that, but there's just not a lot of players available on the trade market right now. And I think that's something that they're running into for sure. And again, Patrick Alvin talked about that. You look at the players that are available, even out of Minnesota, we're hearing that they're not super motivated to move Marco Rossi. If they're not motivated to move Marco Rossi, who the hell's motivated to move anyone?
I don't buy that though.
Oh, it's for sure posturing. It's for sure posturing. They basically said how much they hate the guy. There's no way. And here, this is what's driving me crazy. Not crazy, but this is what's making me think I'm losing my marbles a little bit here, Harm, is this idea that, oh, Minnesota, we might not move him. Okay, he's an RFA. He needs a new contract. You clearly don't want to sign him to a contract. What's stopping anyone from offer sheeting him when that window opens? Like, why wouldn't someone just offer sheet Marco Rossi? And ultimately, like, that's what Minnesota needs to kind of have held against them a little bit here to get this thing moving. Because if they're saying, oh, we're waiting for this or we're waiting for the perfect trade package, which really seems like for the most part what every team's waiting for, except for Buffalo, you need to, at least if you're another team that's interested in Marco Rossi, like, give a gentle reminder to Bill Guerin that, hey, like, your guy is going to get offer sheeted, and we know you don't want to match that offer sheet. Like, do they even want to match a 6x6 for Marco Rossi, even though he's asking for a lot more? The other thing is, would he even sign that? Probably not, because the player signed the offer sheet. But you get my point of, like, that should be something that's looming over the Minnesota Wild and should get this thing moving a little bit here.
Yeah, and to me, I'd be shocked if Rossi isn't dealt by July 1st, which is when he's eligible to sign an offer sheet. By the end of the draft, I would be a little bit surprised if he isn't dealt by then. This, for me, seems like a situation where the Wild are holding out for the best possible offer. And is the team going to, it's sort of like a game of chicken, right? Is the team going to really step up and elevate their offer last minute? But ultimately, I look at that July 1st date as a deadline where I'd be surprised if he isn't dealt by then.
Yep. Absolutely agree. And that's the Canucks guy, right? Like, and again, I say this as someone that a month or two ago was talking about, oh, I don't love the size, not ideal. Look, you need to get better. Evander Kane cannot be the best forward that you acquire this offseason. And based on what else is available, there's a good chance that that is all you're going to be able to do. So you go get Marco Rossi. You absolutely do it. If you're serious about turning this team around and you're not serious about rebuilding, which we know they're not, then you do go get Marco Rossi. Like, if you want to make the playoffs next year, you're going to need to go get Marco Rossi. I don't think they have the pieces right now, and I don't think they're going to be able to go find much else. Certainly not on the open market on free agency day, and I don't think on the trade market either. Like, there's not many guys that are just readily available right now. So Rossi seems like the guy to me. We had someone bring up Kyrou in the chat. Jordan Kyrou, Dylan McDonald brought this up. If we could get Kyrou, because again, he was brought up as part of that Peterka, those Peterka conversations. Dylan McDonald said, if we could get Kyrou and then use some potions and magic to get Thomas as well, I'd be over the moon. Thomas, you're not getting.
Thomas, you're not getting.
Kyrou, that seems a little more realistic to me.
Kyrou is it surprises me a little bit that he might be available. I know he's been a little bit up and down in his time in St. Louis as far as he can be a little bit inconsistent, especially defensively, but he fixed pretty much all of those issues this past year. He scored 36 goals, 70 points. He's an electrifying player off the rush. He was better away from the puck as well. Yeah, if Jordan Kyrou is available, and I think part of the reason why there's at least some of that this conversation starting to pick up is because he has a full no trade clause that kicks in July 1st. So it's a case, I think, of Blues management looking at it and saying, if we ever wanted to move this guy, now's the time, because we're essentially locked in from this point onward. And yeah, if he's available on the market, you want to talk about a player that can drive a line by himself and is instant offense. That's Jordan Kyrou. 36 goals this past season, 31 goals the year prior, 37 goals and 73 points in 2022-23. Yeah, he might frustrate you a little bit at times defensively, but dude is an absolute game breaker offensively. And if he's available, him and Peterka are like, Kyrou is just the older, more mature version of JJ Peterka. And Kyrou's still not that old. He's 27 years old. You control him until 2031, $8.1 million cap hit. So it's a significant investment, but with the skyrocketing cap, I don't view that contract as an issue.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Go get Jordan Kyrou. Let's see it. Anyone else that comes to your mind?
Not a lot. Even on the Kyrou front, it kind of strikes me like, I would guess, I don't have any intel, but I would guess it's more a situation where the Blues are just out of curiosity exploring the idea of, all right, he's coming off one of the best seasons of his career. His stock is at an all-time high. And they have some other sort of talented wingers in the pipeline. So perhaps that's them looking at it and going, all right, if a team blows us away with an offer where we're able to land, let's say that they have a hole at second line center, if we're able to land our perfect second line center and including Kyrou in that package helps us land that, then okay, we're motivated. And that's where, even from the Canucks perspective, I don't know if they have what the Blues would want in a Kyrou trade, because they themselves are looking for a top six center. The Blues are relatively sort of set on the blue line for now. And they're like, I just don't think that the Blues are in a position where they're going to accept a package of, the 15th pick and a couple of prospects.
Yeah.
And that's going to get you Kyrou.
Was Kyrou the one that got booed after saying some stuff about Craig Berube?
Yeah, he was.
Okay. Just saying. No, let's not start this. Okay. Anything else you want to get to? And anyone else? I had one final thing. Where did it go? Oh yeah, I wrote about this today over at Canucks Army, and I want to talk about it, okay? Yesterday, there was the stuff about the Thatcher Demko extension. That's going to be a really interesting situation to follow as we head into the weekend. And again, day one of the draft tomorrow, folks. You're not going to want to miss tomorrow's show. There is going to be activity tomorrow, one way or another. We will be doing a show tomorrow for sure. And you know what? I'm going to be honest with you, Harm. It's 2:54 right now on the live show. We're going to 3:02 today because when they traded for Zadorov, it happened at 3 p.m. It got announced at 3 p.m. and we had just gotten off the air and had to jump back on. They've done other stuff at 3 p.m. We're not going off the air until after 3. We're going at 3:02. I'm just imagining Jim Rutherford watching Canucks Convo, hovering with the tweet button to announce the trade, waiting till we go off the air. No, I did want to actually get this in though before we close out today's show. We talked about the Demko extension yesterday, the potential for a Demko extension, what it could mean for Artur Shilovs. Patrick Allvin certainly didn't close the door to trading Artur Shilovs. So I kind of looked around, and I did this exercise a while ago, but I did it again today, just looking at what NHL teams might want to trade for Artur Shilovs. Now, some interesting things to note. You're going to really get a sense of when this is, or who's going to need a goalie after free agency. Things are going to happen after the draft. Things are going to happen after free agency. But I identified 3 key teams. 2, if we're being realistic. One of them is the Oilers. I'll just get out in front of it and say, just because the Oilers needing a goaltender is an evergreen statement doesn't mean that it's a realistic landing spot for Shilovs. You're not trading a guy who just won Calder Cup playoffs MVP. He just won the Calder Cup trophy for you. There's no way that they're trading that guy to a division rival, legitimately like their only real rival. There's no way they're trading a goaltender with that kind of potential upside to the Oilers. It's not happening. It won't happen. It will not happen. So I included them because the Oilers need a goalie, yes, but I did mention in there's no way that that's actually happening. But I did land on 2 teams, the Philadelphia Flyers and the San Jose Sharks. I want to start with the Sharks here, okay? Because what I wrote, the Sharks basically have their own Artur Shilovs at home with Georgi Romani, 2 years older than Shilovs, unproven at the NHL level, some flashes at the AHL level with San Jose Barracuda. But Shelovs undoubtedly has more pedigree. Obviously, we talk about the Calder Cup, not to mention the 10 Stanley Cup playoff games as well. Other than that, though, they have Yaroslav Askarov, who they're going to want to take a step to be a starter. There's no guarantee that he's going to do that this season. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of handle their goaltending. I would expect that they're a team that's active on the goaltending market in free agency. Now, of course, we've talked about how that's a very thin market, so that's going to be an interesting one to watch. But right now, like, the Sharks need a goalie. They might go get it elsewhere, but I looked at it and said, okay, you've got Askarov. Why not bring in another young goalie and have him challenge for starts with Askarov, and they can kind of battle it out, see who can get the starter's job really in San Jose. Again, that team's not looking to do anything crazy this year, so the San Jose Sharks, I thought that could be a potential landing spot for Artur Shelovs. Do you have any comment on that before I jump to the next team?
They have the need for a goaltender, but just thinking about it from their perspective, Askarov, high potential, but really doesn't have much NHL experience. Shelovs doesn't have much NHL experience either.
I wonder about Jake Allen for San Jose.
A lot of teams are also going to be looking at Allen. And I mean, honestly, it would make a lot of sense for San Jose, actually, because they need to spend about $17 million just to hit the salary cap floor.
Yeah.
So why not overpay him, similar to what they did with Wenberg, where they gave him a $5 million AAV and said, essentially, we're going to overpay you on the cap hit, but we're keeping the term down to 2 years. I wonder if they do something like that, or at least offer something like that to Allen. But my bigger point was going to be, I wonder if they search for more of a veteran, even if they strike out on Allen. In terms of like pairing with,
I thought you were more of a veteran than Jake Allen. What are you talking about?
Then
Mike
Smith?
Smith?
Because I was just thinking, is an NHL team going to be comfortable with the idea of two inexperienced goaltenders?
Sure.
It's pretty rare to have that kind of dynamic, even though both goaltenders and Askarov and Shelovs would obviously have pretty decent potential.
So the second team is the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, this one's interesting, okay? So for those that don't know the Flyers goaltending situation, I know their numbers look bad, but they were a defensive tire fire this year. Make no mistake about it. The Flyers were very, very bad defensively. Now, they have Ivan Fedotov, who they signed out of the KHL to a 2-year deal, $3.275 million cap hit. If they bury that guy in the minors, they get cap savings, and nobody's touching that contract on waivers. Like, that's not even a conversation that, someone's going to claim Fedotov off waivers. So there's no problem dumping that guy down into the minors. You can move that contract. And again, the savings you get from that cost less than what Artur Shelov's $850,000 cap hit would cost on your books. So you save money by trading for Shelovs and sending Fedotov down. Now, that being said, they do have Samuel Ersson, who I think is like, if I'm giving you a list of goalies who I think are going to bounce back years, Ersson's probably near the top of that list. I look at him more as a, I don't know, like, he'll do okay in a Rick Tocchet system. Like, I think he's going to be a goalie who, okay, you know how like Thatcher Demko and even Artur Shelovs to some extent, you know how they can bail you out of really bad defensive play in front? Ersson can't do that. He can't. But he can make the routine saves. And obviously that's something Artur Shelovs has struggled with. So go get the reverse Ersson. Go get Artur Shelovs, right? I threw out this idea just today in the article. I thought it was an interesting one to bring up. I thought it was an interesting one to bring up, but I don't know. We'll see if the Flyers are there in the conversation for Shelovs, because obviously Rick Tocchet had Shelovs last year, and Shelovs didn't do very much with the Canucks and with Rick Tocchet as his coach. But I'm curious about that one as a potential fit. But yeah, those two teams, San Jose and Philadelphia, definitely expect both of them to be looking for a goaltender. Could it be Shelovs? Potentially. I think Philly's probably the most realistic landing spot for Shelovs of any team that I look at right now.
Maybe. I genuinely wonder what Tocchet thinks of Shelovs. Does he look at Shelov's performance in the NHL playoffs and think this guy has the calmness and the mental side of the game on lock, and if we can just work with him to fix the point shot issue, that he has some real upside to pop? Or does Tocchet more look at how he got exposed in the regular season, and especially with that being the lasting impression that Tocchet would have had with Shelovs, where, make no mistake, Tocchet could barely trust Shelovs to play NHL games this past season. Is that going to dissuade Tocchet from giving Flyers management a glowing endorsement of, yeah, go and get this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. That's going to be kind of the X factor as well. But as you mentioned, obviously had the Stanley Cup playoffs, and now he's coming off the Calder Cup playoffs and the MVP as well. One thing's undeniable. I mentioned this before. The guy, if he hits waivers, is going to get claimed. Like, he will get claimed if he hits waivers at this point. I know we were probably a little early to the party when we were talking about that a month or two ago. I understand that. But at this point, I think everybody agrees. This guy's getting claimed if he hits waivers. The track record, there's just too much there now. Obviously World Championships as well. There's too much there for an NHL team to look at their two goaltenders and say, yeah, you know what? We can't put a claim in. Like, Philly would put a claim in, absolutely. Even if Tocchet doesn't love him, if they don't get a guy in free agency or whatever, they do have nothing right now. They need a goalie. They need a goalie beyond just Sam Ersson. And that's really all they have. And then I didn't even mention Kolosov, who's a guy I actually really liked for the Canucks to draft in that draft year. I think it was 2021. I thought he was a guy that Ian Clark really liked. Maybe he did. I don't know. But 2021, Kolosov gets drafted. Really, I think he's a really good goalie. Got a lot of upside, but he's not ready yet. He needs some more time in the AHL. So they need a goalie for sure. Jacob, you had something.
Yeah, so we had an early anyone else from Dylan McDonald saying, do you know who this guy that the Canucks invited to prospects camp is? Stefan Milosevic. I texted Dave Hall. All we got from Dave is don't really know much about him. He's huge, primarily a defensive defenseman, played in the Allsvenskan and also the SHL last year.
Wow.
21 years old, and he's been invited to Canucks prospects camp. So
6'4", 220.
Yeah, he's a quads size defenseman.
Jacob, book Stefan Milosevic. Book him on the show. We actually will have a lot of development camp coverage. The Canucks released the dates for development camp. That is starting on June 30th. So we're gonna be out there. I think every day. That's the beauty. I think Tyson Cole's gonna be out there. Dave Hall's gonna be out there as well. We're gonna have lots of coverage from Dev Camp as we do every year. But gonna be exciting to see Stefan Milosevic. I think this guy could be a player. I can't even say it with a straight face. I tried. Okay. Anything else, Arm?
I could pick up a guy off the street, like a basketball player at my local YMCA who's 6'4".
Can he skate?
He'll be like, no. And I'll be like, it doesn't matter. Let me just bring you to the rec center.
We can teach you to
We'll bring
skate.
quads.
Look at Bo
Quads will
Horvat.
teach you how to skate.
Yeah.
And quads will at the bare minimum get you an ATO somewhere.
Love it. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Let's go to our Bet365 bet of the day. Busy MLB slate, but most of the games are already done. It was one of those matinee days that the MLB likes to have. So we've got one game remaining. It is the Atlanta Braves and the New York Mets. Grant Holmes is on the bump for the Braves. That dude strikes out a lot of people. So let's see what his over-under is. Oh, it's 5.5. We're hammering that. Okay. Grant Holmes over 5.5 total strikeouts, minus 105 odds. You can get that at Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get it on the game. Use the code NATION. Bet365 must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, folks. Sorry about that performance in Family Feud. We'll be back next week. New survey out tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening to an episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.